All right, good morning, everybody. Feel free to, hopefully you can hear me. So if you can't, feel free to chat in the window. Welcome to Echo's webinar on what's new in the Salesforce Winter 20 release, plus a special little section on Dreamforce, since we're right around that time, the biggest event of the year in the Salesforce ecosystem, at least. And let's see here. Awesome. Thank you for confirming that you can hear me. So thank you very much for spending time with us today to go over some of my favorite new features from the release, which is available to you all now in Salesforce as of about a week ago. So you should see the little Astro in his winter suit. So just to introduce us here, Echo Technology Solutions is a full service IT consulting firm, and one of the services we provide is Salesforce consulting. This includes implementations, integrations, ongoing admin support, and the like. My name is Karen Yu. I'm Director of Sales and Marketing here at Echo, and I will be leading us in this webinar today. I used to be a Salesforce admin for a nonprofit prior to joining Echo, so doing this webinar is a bit of fun for me, where I get to kind of look through what Salesforce has released and kind of nerd out about what might be little things. So moving on to the agenda, this is what we'll be going over today. So we'll be talking a little bit about Lightning tools and transition, some general features with a demo, Community Cloud analytics, so reports and dashboards, and we'll do a demo there, Pardot, and then lastly, talk a little bit about Dreamforce 2019, which is coming up next month. So as always, this meeting is being recorded right now and will be shared afterwards along with the presentation slides. If you have a question at any time or want to make a comment or say hi, feel free to just use the chat window in Zoom. It'll look something like what you see on the bottom there. And then once we get to the Q&A section, we'll use the chat window and I'll do my best to answer all of your questions. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is Lightning. And if you haven't yet transitioned to Lightning, well, you just got a little bit more time. Previously, Salesforce was going to start transitioning organizations to Lightning during this winter release. But they just announced that they're going to delay that transition to January of 2020, to be specific, January 7th, 2020. And this is because some other unrelated release to Lightning was having some effects. And so to be extra careful and cautious, they've delayed this auto transition. We went over this in the last Salesforce webinar, if you were around for that, but I've just put in here some resources, if you are still using Classic, some resources to help you kind of kickstart your journey into Lightning. And so in your setup in Classic, you'll see the Lightning Experience Transition Assistant, which will kind of guide you through how best to roll out Lightning to your users, especially if you have a larger organization with a lot of different types of users. You want to make sure that they're really, able to access and see everything that they usually can access. Some resources on the right-hand side here. The Lightning Experience Configuration Converter is going to show you some really cool things about, how many buttons do you have in your Classic instance, how many Visualforce pages, and will also provide some tools that Salesforce has readily built out to help you convert those into being Lightning accessible. And then I've added 2 blog posts here, one from Salesforce and one from Echo, shameless plug. So these 2 blogs will just give you a little bit more information about how to get ready for Lightning, and also, from Echo's experience, what are kind of the most common top 6 items that need to be addressed with Lightning. And then just a reminder that, the webinar today and really all future releases of Salesforce will be in this Lightning experience. So I definitely encourage you to make the update, make the transition if you haven't already. And then just know that just because Salesforce is auto transitioning us all to Lightning, that doesn't mean that Classic is going away, at least not immediately, not in the very near future. So there's a little bit more information about that in these blog posts as well. All right. So let's move on to general features for Winter 20 release. So you know how you might not miss something until it's gone? This small but mighty feature is one that I've looked for again and again in Lightning. And I'm excited to say that it's finally here. Yes, it's the recycle bin. So now, you know, there's nothing to set up or enable in Lightning. It's really just accessible via the apps that you have in Salesforce. So you can just search for it, you'll find it. You no longer need to toggle between Classic and Lightning to access this really great feature. And then as an aside, if you see the links on the bottom, once you get the slides, you'll be able to kind of click those links, and I've linked directly to the release notes pages for all of these features. Speaking of, you know, recycling or recycle bin and kind of accidentally deleting records, Salesforce now gives you the option to undo your action without having to navigate back to the recycle bin in Lightning. So let's say you accidentally delete a contact record in Salesforce. There's now this little pop-up that you see here on the screen with a kind of button to undo that immediately. And that just provides a much more seamless experience so that you don't need to navigate around as much. By the way, as I was reading the release notes, I learned that this little pop-up message is called a toast message. I just got a really great kick out of that because it just kind of, what I'd like to think of it as is this little pop-up is popping up like a piece of toast in the toaster. And you get to click undo when it happens. So we'll see that in a little bit, but I thought that was funny. So if you agree, you can let me know. All right, so speaking of, with Salesforce, the really number one kind of core value of Salesforce is trust. And so I always like to include a security little tidbit in these webinars. And I think Salesforce is really on the right track with this new feature. Every organization is prone to cyber attacks, breaches, hacks, anything. And every organization should have an incident response plan in place for any kind of incident that might happen. And the first step in any incident response plan is always to notify the appropriate people. These might be staff such as your CEO or your IT director or your operations person. And really the key is that these people should be able to make decisions about the impact to your organization and any action items that might be necessary. So Salesforce now allows you to designate these security contacts for your Salesforce organization. So if an information security incident impacts your Salesforce org in any way, these contacts are automatically notified via email. And the way you set this up isn't actually within your Salesforce organization. So you don't go to setup to set this up. You actually will go to Salesforce help using your login credentials. And in that help portal, you'll be able to set these people up and add people to your security contact list. So I know that, all of us are on our laptops a lot of the time. I bring my laptop everywhere. I bring my phone everywhere. And as much as I'd like to be 100% digital, sometimes I just need to print something out. In Salesforce, sometimes you just need to print a list, whether it's a list of opportunities or donations, a list of accounts, contacts, whatever it might be. Salesforce now allows you to have this printable view, and you can see that here on the left is kind of a list view of opportunities, and on the right is a printable view. So you can see it's super condensed, really simplified to maximize the amount of content that you get printed on the page. And so that's a really nice feature that Salesforce has added in this Winter 20 release. And then if you've been using Salesforce for a while, chances are you have your fair share of third-party apps installed into your org. These could be apps or packages that you were trying out or testing for a specific use case and just wanted to kind of demo a feature there. Or these are apps that you are actively paying for or subscribe to that are installed in your Salesforce org. So if you've ever wanted to, kind of audit or check how much these packages are actually being used, Salesforce now offers the ability to generate a report to do just that. And so when you do generate the report, keep in mind, so like if I click the submit new request, keep in mind that once the request is done and it provides you a link to download, keep in mind that that link does expire after 15 minutes. I don't know why it's so short. And also when I was testing this out, Salesforce doesn't email you when the link is ready. So I've definitely generated the report and then just missed the link because I forgot to check on it and it expired and I had to submit a new request again. So keep that in mind, kind of pay attention to the timing when you submit this request. But I do think this is a really great feature, especially for organizations that have been on Salesforce for a while and maybe, you just want to really consolidate your instance or clean it up. I think this will give you really great insight into kind of how people are using Salesforce and how people are using your installed apps. Okay, actually, before we get into Community Cloud, I'm going to demo some of these features for you. So I'm logged into a dev org here, and let's first go over the recycle bin and this undo feature. So I have a contact record that I've aptly named delete me so that I knew which one I needed to delete for today. And you can see here that if I go and delete this record, yes, I want to delete the contact record. You'll see that here is this lovely toast message that confirms that it was deleted, and it gave me the immediate option to undo it. And you can see that this toast message went away after a period of time. So you kind of have to be really quick about using that. But if you aren't as quick, then you can go to the recycle bin and it will be there. So the way you get to the recycle bin is just click your app launcher, and I'm going to just search for my recycle bin, and there it is. And you can see here this record that I just deleted, and it tells me when it was deleted. So, about a minute ago. And what I can do from here is restore my deleted record, or I can permanently delete it from my instance. And so that's what these options are here. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and restore. And great. And so now I can look for this record, and I should see my contact back and ready to go. So that's just really quick, but I think super useful. And again, something that I've looked for time and time and again. And, it was annoying to have to toggle back to Classic, and now I don't have to. All right, so I'm not going to be able to demo the security contacts because that would require me going to Salesforce Help. But if you have questions about that, feel free to contact me, but you can also submit a case to Salesforce if you want help setting that up. But I recommend everyone to set up those security contacts as soon as you can because you never know when something might happen, right? So the next feature we're going to go over is the print list view, and I have a contact list here. This is just a regular list view, kind of standard. And if I toggle here, I can now see this option for printable view on the top right-hand side. And when I click that, it opens up a new screen, and you can see all of the 21 records that are in my list view now super consolidated and condensed with all of the fields that I had on my list view. And from here, I can actually just print this page, send it to my local printer. So that's really useful as well. And then in terms of package usage, so you would go to Setup. You can see the lovely asterisk there. And you're just going to search in the quick find for package usage. And here it is. And so what I can do now is just submit a new request. I don't have any banished packages in my dev org, but what you would see here, actually, if I switch and toggle to Echo's actual instance, you can see that I submitted a request here, one a couple of days ago and one just this morning. And actually it might be, and the thing that I said that about the 15-minute window just happened to me again. So it expired, but you can see it's super easy to just submit the request. And then again, Salesforce will not notify you when that link is ready. So be sure to check on this page again, but I imagine it would send you, like a CSV or Excel file with all of your packages and how it's being used. So if you're curious, like I am, I would definitely check that out. All right, awesome. So now I'm just gonna toggle back to my slides here and we're gonna move on to Community Cloud. So, if you haven't used Community Cloud before, definitely look into it. It's definitely something where I recommend it to Salesforce users who are a little bit more mature in their Salesforce kind of history. And so this really provides, external portals for customers, partners, volunteers, donors, whoever it might be who's interacting and engaging with your organization to access Salesforce data from your instance. And of course, you can set your privacy settings and your access settings so that they only see what you want them to see. The first thing that I'm excited about in terms of Community Cloud are these more flexible page layouts. So with Community Cloud and standard templates and theming, Salesforce gives you different layouts already that are kind of ready-made and out of the box. And with the Winter 20 release, Salesforce is really giving you more flexibility for these page layouts. So sometimes you really just want to customize a page how you want them to be. And so you can decide here how many columns you want on a page, what's the column distribution, and then of course you can customize those pages with imagery or backgrounds, whatever you want. And so that's really interesting. And so I love that Salesforce is coming out with more and more kind of standard ability to customize communities, because it is kind of like building a website. And so obviously the more customization and customizability you have as an admin, the better your community will be for it and the better your organization will be for it as well. With communities, if you're using communities, as I mentioned before, you're probably sharing records with users in some fashion. And so this could be partners looking at shared opportunities, or as I said, if you're a nonprofit, a volunteer looking at their volunteer history records and how long they've been volunteering with your organization and in what way. And if you're storing files in Salesforce or documents, attachments, Salesforce calls them files with a capital F. By default, the files on records are not visible to users. And of course, you can make them visible. And so now with the Winter 20 release, you can actually share files on records more granularly with a new who can access section. And you can set whether the user has view access to that file or if their access should be set by their record access. So for example, if I have access to this Blue Sky Media account in Salesforce, I don't necessarily have access to the files associated with that account until the community admin shares those with me. And so you can see here in the screenshot that I've included that for global media, they have customer access to this account plan file and they're set as a viewer. And so, for all of these, no one will be able to make edits to these files unless they download them, but they can view them within the community. Awesome. Okay, so the next section here we're going to talk about is analytics, which in this case is really reports. there are 3 really awesome features available in the Winter 20 release. One of them was a beta feature before and is now generally available, and the other 2 are beta features, which I thought was really exciting. So the first one we'll go over are these row-level formulas. And so this was beta in the last release, and now it's generally available. So row-level formulas are, you know, if you've ever run a report in which you could quickly use a formula to analyze the data, you know, instead of asking your admin or creating a new formula field on the record itself, you can actually just create a row-level formula on the report and have that field be specific to that report itself. And so in this example, and what you'll see a little bit later, is that we are counting, you know, the days since the last activity on a particular opportunity in the report. And so we'll see that in a little bit. And you'll see here before, if you look at, if you try and do this in a report, this used to say add row level formula beta. Now that it's generally available, it doesn't have beta anymore. So I'm glad that they've really added that to Salesforce and haven't taken away. So this next feature is really exciting. If you spent some time in the Salesforce Success Forums or in the Power of Us Hub, you may have heard of the Power of One. This is a concept thought up by Tom Tobin and also evangelized by Steve Mullis, both who are kind of Salesforce celebrities and really just a wealth of knowledge of tips and tricks for admins. So the Power of One is basically a way to count unique values on reports by using a custom formula field. And if you haven't heard of this, it's really a neat trick, but I'll skip right ahead to the actual feature here. So with the click of a button now on your reports, you can count unique values. And so this is especially useful if, for example, you want to count how many accounts are in a report, but each account has multiple opportunities in the report, right? And so in those cases where you have those multiple opportunities, the account is showing up multiple times as rows on the report. So you can kind of see that here in this screenshot, and we'll see that in a little bit later. But now if I just go and show the unique count of accounts in that report, it will spit out a value at me and show me how many times how many unique accounts are in there. So we'll see that in a little bit. This is a beta feature, so it does need to be enabled through your setup in order if you want to try it out. The next feature here is really, Salesforce has added a way to compare 2 field values and filter by that comparison. So this is actually from the idea exchange in Salesforce. So if you ever see something that, you know, hey, I have an idea on this, on how to make it better, please do submit it on the idea exchange. It may take Salesforce a while to get to it. This idea was on the idea exchange and was there for 12 years. And Salesforce has now just released it as a beta feature. So that doesn't mean that this is any less useful. So this allows you to filter reports based on the values of 2 different fields of the same value type. So if you want to compare currency fields with each other and see like which one is greater than the other and then filter on that, you can do that now, or similarly with date fields. So this might be used in data quality reports, for example. So, you know, at Echo, we have, you know, an agreement start date. So, you know, if we have a new client, we will start services on, let's say, November 1st. But, you know, obviously the contract might be signed October 15th. So I might use this feature to see, do I have any contracts where the service start date is prior to the listed close date of that opportunity. And you can think of this as donations as well. Because if that's the case, then that's wrong, right? Because I shouldn't have a contract with a service start date prior to when it's signed or when it's received. So we'll see that in a couple of minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and toggle back to my dev org here. And I'm going to use this report for opportunity summary. It's just a really basic out of the box opportunities report. If you're a nonprofit, this could be a donations report. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this and go into my report builder screen. And let's first talk about row level formulas, which again was beta, but is now generally available. So if I go here in my columns section, in this dropdown, I'm going to click add row level formula. And so now what I can do is, let's say, let's do the same example, days since last activity. I want it to be number. I don't want decimal points since we're counting days. And I'm going to include the formula today. Actually, that's not a field, that's a function. Today, and I'm going to insert this, minus, and I want the last activity date. Insert, and I'm going to just validate that. It's valid, awesome. So my formula is going to work, and I'm going to go ahead and apply that to the report. And you can see that now Salesforce has just added this column for this formula field, and at the row level, it's calculating this formula for me. So that's really awesome. I thought that when this would be generally available, that Salesforce would give you the ability to add more than one row level formula field, but that's not the case. So you can still only add one. And if you see here, if I try and add another one, that option is actually grayed out for me. So there's a maximum of one row level formula that you can have in particular reports. So just keep that in mind. So the next one is the unique value count. And so if you look at my preview here, you'll see that if I just sort by account name, you'll see that I have a couple of accounts here showing up multiple times because Edge Communications has 2 opportunities listed, GenePoint has 2 opportunities listed, and right now, since there's only 7 records, I can easily tell that, okay, I have 5 unique accounts. But if this report was really long, which probably all of your reports are much longer than this, or if you're looking for, just a longer period of time, whatnot, then counting these unique accounts is going to be really annoying. And if you don't want to use the power of one technique, now Salesforce has added this great feature where if I click the drop down on any one of these fields, I can click the show unique count. It'll refresh, and now you can see that Salesforce has counted the unique values for me. And so that is really awesome, especially if you have reports where you have multiple objects related to one another, and you want to see, like, for a particular record, how many related unique object records there are. This is awesome. And then the next one is really comparing 2 values and filtering. So I'm going to toggle back here to my filter section on the report builder. And I'm going to add a filter for, let's say, my use case about service start date versus close date of an opportunity or a contract. And so I'm going to say I want the service start date. This is a custom field that I added to my opportunities. And you can now see here that instead of just comparing it to a particular value, I can click this drop down and compare it to the value of a field that exists in my report or on the records. So in this case, I do want to compare it to close date, and you can see it kind of auto-filled, but if I exit out of this, you can see all of the available date fields since Salesforce is reading what type of field that is. So in this case, close date is correct, and I want to know what I want to filter and see all opportunities where the service start date is less than my close date, because if there are any, then I'm going to need to update those later. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this filter. And you can see here that rather than the 7 opportunities that I originally had, I'm now down to 3. And so I can see here that the service start date for the 3 of these is less than the close date of all of them. And that's not possible because I can't start services on a contract until after it's closed. So I might want to push these dates out a little bit to clean up my data. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and save and run that report. And those are the 3 features. So to enable those 2 last beta features, you're going to go to Setup if you want to play around with it, which I recommend. And you're going to go to Reports and Dashboard Setting. So I just typed in report in my quick find here. And you're going to go to Reports and Dashboard Settings. And you can see these last 2 checkboxes. I enabled them so that I could do this demo. And so if you want to play around in your own reports, you can toggle these as well. Or sorry, check these boxes. All right, awesome. So we're speeding through things here. So the next thing I want to talk about is Pardot, which we use internally here at Echo for most of our marketing and communications. So the first one is about email snippets. So email snippets are a great new feature that allow you to reuse content in emails. So for example, for this webinar, we sent out a series of emails publicizing the webinar, and each email had the same details about the webinar. So like the date, the time, the place, et cetera, et cetera. And instead of us copy pasting that text every time, or worse, rewriting it manually, we could have used an email snippet with that content and then added it to our email templates like a regular merge field. So in these screenshots above, you can kind of see how to create a snippet and then kind of what it looks like in Pardot when you're selecting a merge field to insert into your email. So these are really easy to create in Salesforce. You do need connected campaigns set up with Pardot and Salesforce, but actually these are all managed within Salesforce, so not through Pardot. So that makes it really easy for kind of your sales or marketing users to create these snippets really easily and quickly. And then, the other thing I want to mention about Pardot in the winter release is that, Pardot as a whole offers more robust marketing analytics than most other automation tools. And this new feature demonstrates that. So from the account record in Salesforce, users can now drill down on account level engagement with your Pardot campaigns and assets. So in the screenshot here, you can see which contacts in your account are the most active. For example, you can see how the engagement of your account has grown over time. And how this particular account is engaging with, campaigns that they are in that you're sending out through Pardot. So I think that's really cool. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about today is Dreamforce. So I'll be at Dreamforce next month. I hope that some of you will be as well. It's a really great time to kind of engage with the Salesforce community, really get a lot of learning and exposure to what's coming up with Salesforce and kind of where their priorities are for the different products that they have. So for the last item in our time today, I really wanted to just share some tips for Dreamforce attendees, or maybe some insight into what to expect for those of you who might be thinking of attending in future years. So this year will actually be my 6th Dreamforce, which is kind of crazy for me to say because I definitely don't feel like a veteran. And I'm just very lucky that my job has allowed me to attend every year, initially as a Salesforce customer when I was an admin for at my previous job, and now as a Salesforce partner managing our Salesforce partnership at Echo. So just know that even if you go 6 years, you might not feel like a veteran. So the first tip here is really, wear your walking shoes. Dreamforce spans the entire downtown San Francisco, and by the end of the day, your backpack, anything that you're carrying can feel like, 50 pounds. So definitely wear your walking shoes, wear layers. So if you're not local to San Francisco, you never know when the fog will roll in, and it can be completely sunny, 70 degrees at 1 o'clock, and then by 5 o'clock it's 50 degrees. So definitely wear layers. So if you ever look up Dreamforce tips, those top two are going to be what you find everywhere, because if you're a local like I am, you kind of know that, but if you're not local, it's very easy to forget. So my third tip here is, Dreamforce has over 2,700 sessions to choose from. So do your homework, go through the sessions prior to Dreamforce, have an initial plan, and choose your sessions wisely. But then also have a plan B. So the way I look at sessions when I go through the agenda and kind of want to build my day, I will first narrow down by industry and product. So if I'm really interested in what's going on with Sales Cloud, I'll just look through the Sales Cloud sessions. If I'm really interested in what's going on with Nonprofit Cloud and Salesforce, I'll just go through all of the nonprofit sessions. And that way I can really prioritize my time. So, but then also know that, my first Dreamforce, I signed up for everything. I was like, I'm going to attend all of these sessions every day, and it's just impossible. And so you're inevitably going to find yourself with you double booked yourself, or a session you signed up for is now full and you can't get in. So definitely have a plan B, and don't be afraid to kind of take a break from sessions if you're feeling a little bit like you need some sugar for the day. If you're attending Dreamforce, and if you're attending Dreamforce with a team, even if it's just two of you, plan to divide and conquer. Most of the time, in my role now with Salesforce and how I interact with Salesforce, I'm more interested in like sales and partnership stuff. But as an admin, I was really interested in like tips and tricks and like formula fields and how can I make my reports better. So if you're going with a team and you're kind of in a similar role, or you would be interested in similar things, definitely divide and conquer. You go to one session, take notes, jot down your key takeaways, and then your colleague can go to another session that you're interested in and kind of jot his or her takeaways as well. And then at the end, when you come back, you can kind of share notes, share knowledge, and learn together. And so that's definitely important, because it's not a great use of time, and especially if you're investing in attending Dreamforce, you want to get as much as possible, and dividing and conquering and attending different sessions is a great way to do that. So go to sessions you know nothing about. With Salesforce, I think exposure is key. So even if you're not using a particular product now, you might think about using it in the future. And the only way you're really going to know that is if you expose yourself to that new technology. So I would go to sessions you know nothing about. I would spend time in the different areas of Dreamforce that aren't as familiar to you. So if you're an admin, maybe spend some time in the dev section. If you're dev, maybe spend some time in the partnership section, and really just expose yourself to really all that Salesforce has to offer, because it's a lot. And then number 6 here, attend roadmap sessions. So I find roadmap sessions probably the most useful at Dreamforce, more than any sort of kickoff, more than any, kind of keynote, because I want to know what Salesforce is building next for the product that I use. So usually there's roadmap sessions for every cloud. So there's going to be a nonprofit cloud roadmap, a sales cloud roadmap, service cloud roadmap. I would definitely try and attend all of those if you can. Because there's always just great new features. And if you are an admin and you're thinking about, building in some functionality to your Salesforce, then, you want to know if that feature is going to come out in the next year or so. So maybe you spend time doing something else and then wait for Salesforce to release that feature for you. Number 7, skip the lines and watch the keynotes from outside. So like I said, I don't find keynotes that useful. They are inspiring, to be sure, but instead of waiting and cramming yourself into that room, these keynotes are broadcasted on all of the kind of screens around Dreamforce, and so you can get a drink, sit outside, and you can watch the keynote from there. You don't have to wait in line. And then lastly, talk to everybody. I find Dreamforce is the easiest place to network because everyone can talk about Salesforce. Everyone's super passionate about Salesforce. So even if you just open with, you know, like, how long have you been in the Salesforce ecosystem? What's your role in Salesforce? It really just opens up the conversation. And, you know, as someone who has worked with Salesforce for 6 years now, I can go on and on and on about Salesforce. It's really easy for me. And I think that's the case for a lot of people who attend Dreamforce. So don't be afraid to, you know, just open up a conversation with the person you're sitting next to or standing in line with. All right, that is my content for today. And so I will open it up to questions if any of you have them. We've got, we're here until about 9:45, but I can absolutely stay longer if you have questions and if we go that far. If you have any questions, feel free to chat them to me or feel free to unmute yourself. Awesome. Thanks, Carrie Andrea. Any questions? Otherwise, I'm more than happy to end a few minutes early. Let's see. So Felice asks if there's a good resource for row-level formula examples. Not off the top of my head, Felice, but I can definitely do some digging and find some examples for you after this webinar and send them to you directly. There are definitely so many use cases for row-level formulas. So the one I demoed was around, you know, counting the days since the last activity for a particular opportunity or a donation that you might have in Salesforce. And the point of that is really to kind of look at your relationship managers or your sales reps and see if they're contacting those donors or partners frequently. So that's definitely one use case that's really common for row-level formulas, but there's so many more. And so Felice, I can send that to you directly after this. Any other questions? I'm just going to take a sip of coffee. All right. Well, thank you all so much for spending time with me this morning. And, you know, I'm always really excited about every release in Salesforce, and I hope you are too. And I hope that I've saved you some time reading about these releases in the 500-page document that Salesforce puts out. So if you'd like to, you know, take a deeper dive into any of the features you saw today, feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact information is on the screen you see now. Or if you're currently working with Echo, feel free to reach out to your project team and your project manager. If you have any ideas for future webinars, any kind of technology topics, Salesforce related or not, frankly, you can feel free to email me that as well and get in touch. But thank you again so much for joining us this morning, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. All right, thank you everyone. Bye-bye.